Now then, so this is an introduction to Unibox. Unibox is an application that allows you to add games on the fly, essentially, to any Launchbox installations running anywhere on your home network. So there's a couple of things you need to do before you get started with Unibox. The first is to set up an account on Screen Scraper. This will allow you to get any metadata and media downloaded when you're adding the game. The second thing to do is to change basically a couple of settings on any remote installations that you're going to be using with Unibox. So I've got a remote installation. I'm just remote desktoping here into an installation that's somewhere else on my home network. This is basically a computer downstairs. So if I start up Launchbox on that machine, as I said, this is a remote desktop. We just need to change a couple of settings. One is in terms of video playback. Now this is temporary. Some guys on the forum said this is going to be fixed pretty soon, but there's some bugs basically when you use Windows Media Player with certain views and with Unibox. So basically you just need to tick this option here, use VLC for video playback. Now the second thing you need to do, if you're going to be using Unibox, then you are better to disable automatic ROM imports. Basically there's conflict sometimes between metadata. So they're the two settings to change on any installations that you're going to use with Unibox. So if we go back to the PC that you're using Unibox on, and if I start this up, so this is what you will get when you start up Unibox. Just to go back quickly to the remote installation, I'm just going to close down Launchbox now. Now, this remote installation, the way I got it set up is that my games and the assets are on a different drive on the remote computer. So they're actually on the D drive in this installation, and you'll see I've got assets and games. That's going to be important when we get to setting up the different installations. So back to the Unibox installation. When you start up, you want to just change some settings. First of all, enter your username and password for your Screen Scraper connection. Test it, and it will also update this thread. So if you have more than one thread for scraping, which means you get faster scrapes, then it will automatically update this here. Make sure these are checked. You can also change the priority of media. So say there's different medias for box art, for box front, then this will choose which one it prioritizes for download. Second thing is just some settings here. The port you shouldn't have to change. Now, Unibox communicates with any remote installations via a plugin, and that plugin listens on this port here. If you've got another application that uses this port, you may need to change this. You'd have to change this in this application, but also in the plugin settings on the remote installation. Allow offline game edition. That's basically if you're not running Launchbox or Big Box on the remote installation, then obviously the plugin won't pick up any communications. This one directly edits or changes the platform.xml files. Sorry, the platform XML files, say Sony PSP.xml on the remote installation, so it directly changes the files. I've had no problems with that, but if you want to allow that, or if you don't want it to happen, then you can just disallow that. The other thing is it's got a backup option, so it'll back up the platform XML before adding to it. Just gives you an extra level of protection. Basically, it only keeps one backup, so if the XML were to mess up, then you would do it again, then you would save the messed up XML. So make sure you keep an eye on things. But as I say, I've had no problems with that so far. So they're the settings. Now we get into the slightly complicated bit, the installations. So you need to tell Unibox where to look for different Launchbox installations on your home network. So we click Add. Now, the other thing I forgot to explain, just to go back briefly, is on your remote installations, so I'm going back to that here, you will need to set up shares. So in my instance, if you remember, there's two folders, games and assets on the D drive. Now, Unibox needs to be able to access any folders that contains games or assets, but also the actual Launchbox path itself on the remote installation. The way you would do that, I've already done that on mine, but you would right-click, click Properties, go into Sharing, go into Advanced Sharing, and then you would click Share. You can see I've already shared that, and for your Launchbox installation, you can just right click, do the same, Properties, click Sharing, and choose to share it. Now on the network, if we just go back to the machine that Unibox is installed on, you should then be able to see those. So this is the remote installation we're working with, and you'll see I've got assets, games, and users, which takes me into the Launchbox installation. So that's how to set up the networking component. So once you've done that, click Add, go down to the network location, the network share, find your Launchbox installation, and then select that folder. Now, the other thing we need to do is, I can show you actually, let's just edit this name rather. So on the remote installation, the database will save things like ROM paths and asset paths as local paths to that remote installation. So if we look here, this is the Unibox has gotten the information from the remote installation. And you will see that the ROMs paths are the local path for the remote installation. So there's a process whereby Unibox figures out what path it has to use for the remote ROMs or assets. So just to go back, so click this here, show paths, and then if you select a system, a platform, it will show you what the assets path are for that too. So what you're wanting to remap, now this is a good one. So that path there in the Launchbox database means that it's within the Launchbox folder itself. So magazines, for example, these are all C64 Dreams files. That would be the Launchbox installation root folder, games, C64 Dreams. Sega Dreamcast, where they're blank like this, that means Launchbox hasn't put a ROM folder in the XML file, the platform's XML file, but it figures it out internally in its code. You shouldn't need to worry too much about this. I think Unibox is doing a pretty good job of kind of figuring out where things should be. But basically, for remaps, you're wanting to tell it to remap certainly local drives on remote computers, you need to kind of pick another one here. So you want to remap D games and D assets. So use these paths. It pulls those over to here, and you need to tell it how to access that from the computer using Unibox on. So we need to give it its equivalent network path. So this is for games. So we just click the games share, select folder, and you just want to edit this so you lose any of that. And with this, any path containing d.games will be remapped to the share path, basically. Same for this, choose the assets path. And then same thing, remove this so it's just the root of what needs remapping. So if we do that, that's set up. Now if you select it, now what we need to do is we ask Unibox to figure out what the paths are that will be used. So you click this button here. You get a report which kind of tells you, gives you a detailed breakdown of what happens for each of the process, basically. You see 6 warning and 0 errors. You can click this to get the warnings up. And you'll see here that it says no ROM folders set in Launchbox, but folder for this platform exists in the Launchbox Games folder. So it basically tells you what Unibox has done to figure out any paths, basically. So you might want to just explore that path to make sure that is the right path. But normally it's pretty sound, normally gets sorted. So now if we click the installation, you'll see this is the folder that it's going to use for any operations. So let's say we wanted to upload a Sony PlayStation game. We choose it in this application. It would upload it to this path here. Same for assets paths. It just maps this onto this. So you can check through that and see if they're all okay. You can change the paths manually. And what you can do is if you've changed the path manually, you don't want any update to overwrite that change. You just toggle like that. You just choose to lock that entry. Whenever you add a new system on the remote installation, it's good to do an update, basically. So that's how you get it all set up. So we can show it working now. So if I change my view here, there we go. So you can see the remote installation there. And if I bring up Big Box, if I run Big Box, and this is running it on that remote installation.
Initializing Big Box.
If I navigate, just to show an example, handhelds, PSP. You see we've got 4 games on there. So I'm just going to navigate out of this. I'm just going to mute the desktop audio. There we go. So now I'm going to add a ROM, which is pretty simple. You choose the installation. Oh, I didn't mention this. So if the plugin isn't installed on the remote installation, Unibox will do it for you. So you click yes. And then we need to restart the remote installation. That's just to make sure the plugin is up and running when we add games. Actually, let's just force quit. So now if I start it again, now because you've the plugin communicates over a port over the local network, so you will get this pop up. Just select private networks and click allow. Now if we go back to Unibox, we should be able to select system. Let's do Sony PSP. You'll see that the games match the games that were on the remote installation. And if we click, there we go. So if we click add ROM, and if I go to the ROMs folder, and let's install that. You can do multiple installations, but for this demo, we'll just do one. Unibox gives you an update in terms of what it's doing. And what you should see is when it's installed, you'll see it there. Big Box then goes to the game you've just uploaded and gives you all the media. This gives you a breakdown of the process and tells you basically it was added successfully to Big Box. And that's about it. So I hope that's helpful. Hope it's good. And take care.